What if I told you that a mysterious group of humans lived just 14,000 years ago, long after Neanderthals and Denisovans had disappeared? And yet, they didn't quite look like us. A flat face, a thick jaw, no chin, enormous molars. A strange combination of primitive and modern features emerged at a time when humans were already planting crops, domesticating animals, and establishing societies. These are the Red Deer Cave people, a group of hominins who might rewrite the last chapter of our evolutionary story. Were they the last survivors of a forgotten species, or just an isolated branch of Homo sapiens that retained archaic traits? This mystery begins not in Africa or Europe, but in the remote mountains of southwest China, in the shadow of thick forests and ancient limestone caves. And what lies inside those caves has puzzled scientists, sparked global debate, and forced us to reconsider what it really means to be human. Welcome to 5 Minutes of Culture. Today we step into a cave that may contain the last echoes of humanity's lost siblings. The story begins in 1989, in Maludong, also known as the Red Deer Cave, in Yunnan province, China. Here, Chinese archaeologists unearthed a collection of human fossils, skull fragments, jaw bones, limb bones, all mixed with animal remains. But in a surprising twist, these bones were not studied in depth. For more than 2 decades, they sat largely ignored in a university collection. Fast forward to 2010. A team led by Professor Darren Curnow from Australia and Ji Shuiping from China re-examines the collection. What they find is stunning. The fossils don't look like they should. The skull bones are thick. The brow ridges are heavy. The face is flat. There's no chin. And the molars? Enormous. Radiocarbon dating puts them at 14,000 years old. That's 4,000 years before the Great Pyramid of Giza, and tens of thousands of years after all known archaic humans were thought extinct. In other words, these bones are far too recent to look so ancient. But they do. And that contradiction has launched one of the most intriguing debates in modern paleoanthropology. Let's get anatomical. The skull vault of the Red Deer Cave people is thick and low, more like Homo erectus than modern Homo sapiens. Their brain size is approximately 1,100 cubic centimeters, which is smaller than the modern average of 1,350 cubic centimeters. They had no chin, a trait absent in Neanderthals and other archaic humans, but present in us. The jawbone was broad and robust, lacking the mental eminence. Their teeth were massive, especially the molars, suggesting a diet of coarse, tough foods. Yet, some features point to modernity. A relatively flat face, small cheekbones, and evidence that they used fire, butchered red deer, and possibly even cooked their meals. That's right. The cave was filled with red deer bones, showing signs of cut marks and charring. In another cave, Longlin Cave, 300 kilometers away, fossils with similar traits were discovered, possibly from the same population, or perhaps a different one, sharing a common ancestry. Quick note, if we're still discovering mysterious humans from just 14,000 years ago, who else might be waiting in the shadows of history? Subscribe to 5 Minutes of Culture, and join us in rewriting prehistory. The Red Deer Cave fossils created an academic firestorm. Were they a new species, or just modern humans with unusual traits, perhaps due to isolation, interbreeding, or genetic drift? Curnow and his team in 2012 tentatively proposed a new name, Homo longi. But this was heavily debated, especially as the name was later applied to the more recently discovered Dragon Man fossil, which may not be related. No DNA could be extracted from the Red Deer Cave bones. That's a huge problem. Without it, it's extremely difficult to determine if these individuals were modern humans or a different lineage. The hot, humid climate of southern China is notorious for destroying ancient DNA, and so far, none has been recovered. So researchers must rely solely on bone morphology, a tricky game when it comes to classifying hominins. Still, the combination of primitive and modern traits is unlike any known population. One hypothesis: The Red Deer Cave people might be the result of isolation, a sort of evolutionary bubble. In island biogeography, isolated populations often evolve along unique paths. Think of Homo floresiensis in Indonesia, the so-called hobbit species. But the Red Deer Cave region isn't an island. It's a mountainous, forested, and ecologically diverse inland area. Could such terrain have functioned as an evolutionary island? Small groups cut off by geography, surviving for millennia with the limited contact, might have retained ancient traits or developed new ones. And there's another possibility: archaic admixture. We now know that Homo sapiens interbred with Neanderthals, Denisovans, and likely other unknown hominins. Could the Red Deer Cave people be a result of such blending, a mosaic lineage carrying echoes of multiple ancestors? It's even possible that Denisovan traits survived in this region, passed down through generations. Recent genetic studies have shown that East Asians, Melanesians, and indigenous Australians carry significant Denisovan DNA, suggesting deep roots in the region. The Red Deer Cave people might fit somewhere in that story, even if we can't prove it yet. What makes the mystery even harder to solve is the fragmentary nature of the evidence. We don't have complete skeletons, just partial skulls, jaws, femurs. That leaves much to interpretation, and interpretations vary widely. Some researchers argue these are clearly archaic humans, perhaps the last survivors of an unknown lineage. Others think they're just regional variants of Homo sapiens with unusual features due to local pressures. But the most intriguing thing is how recent they are. These people lived in a time when agriculture was spreading, when civilizations were forming elsewhere, when humans were trading, farming, and building. And yet, in a dark cave in China, lived people whose bones looked as if they belonged to a much older world. It's like finding a living fossil of humanity. If the Red Deer Cave people really were a different species, or a hybrid lineage, it would force us to rethink our entire timeline. It would mean that multiple hominin lineages survived longer than we ever imagined. It would suggest that our family tree isn't a straight line, but a dense, tangled forest, full of dead ends, hybrids, and forgotten branches. Even today, new discoveries keep pushing back dates, expanding known ranges and revealing unimaginable complexity. From Dimanisi in Georgia to Liangbua in Indonesia, and now Maludong in China, each site adds a new puzzle piece. And the full picture of human evolution? We're still assembling it. So who were the Red Deer Cave people? A new species? A strange offshoot? Or simply a reminder of how little we still understand about ourselves? What we know is this: they challenge our definitions of species, of identity, of belonging. And they remind us that evolution doesn't move in straight lines. It loops, it overlaps, it surprises. Somewhere, deep in the forests of China, our past still lingers in the shadows, in bones, in soil, in unanswered questions. Because sometimes, the last chapter of a story is the one we forget to read. This was 5 minutes of culture. And history? It's still being written, bone by bone, cave by cave.